Hi, welcome to Technical Writing Uncensored. I'm here with Tal Gluck, developer advocate at GitBook and author of the State of the Docs report. Welcome, Tal.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
Thanks. So how did you get into developer advocacy?
Yeah, so I've had a pretty meandering career, but I first got into DevRel. I worked in market research for a little bit. I was a data analyst and did data things for a while. And then I wound up working kind of as a consulting data engineer for a company that had an open source package take off that became a product company and was a software engineer. And then spent a lot of time working with both customers and also like the community and also fixing issues kind of on a more community basis. And they were starting a DevRel team and said, how would you like to join? You know the product well, you know the community well. And I thought it would be a good idea. I was a little nervous
Hmm.
about it. I didn't want it to be like too salesy,
Hmm.
but it turned out to not be salesy at all. I thought it would be much more like being a mouthpiece for the company or for the product to the community. And I underestimated how much it was also being the mouthpiece for the community back to the company and being able to like share their
Hmm.
issues. And so that was, yeah, it turned out great. And now it's been 6 or 7 years, some number of years, more than five, and haven't really looked back.
So how does your role interact with technical writing?
Yeah, so like just very directly, I do some technical writing. I've always done technical writing at previous companies. We also had a technical writer on the DevRel team, but like the developer advocates did technical writing too. On a more like abstract basis, it's also, I think, similar to technical writing. You're this layer between product and user, product and customer. So your idea is to basically be able to understand the product and translate it and understand the customer's use case and meet those two together. Ideally, they always go together or they go together really naturally. But if they don't, you're the person whose job it is to connect them.
Hmm. So that is a great segue. What kind of stuff do you do for the community or with the community as a developer advocate?
Yeah, so I would say it's like there's a couple of bits. One thing is just like talking to our own customers, working on case studies, understanding how customers are using the product. But then working on state of docs, it's really been like a whole different side of things because I'm not just working with customers in state of docs. I'm working a lot with people who are not customers, and it's really just kind of understanding the state of the profession
Hmm.
and how people are feeling and what people are doing and how the role is changing. And so it's this very like human endeavor to be able to talk to people and get their takes on things and synthesize that. And so there's actually working on the state of docs report. There's all the interviews that went into that. And then now it's also been taking on this like research aspect to things. So I'm doing a bit of my own research, seeing how like LLMs consume docs and what that process is like. And then starting also to compile work of other people like Thackeray Carey or Rhiannon Rodriguez. Yeah, it seems like a really nascent and really exciting field. And so trying to gather it together and make some sense out of it. Yeah.
Very cool. How did State of the Docs get started?
So originally, it was launched like a week before I started at GitBook last year. And then that was the first year of it. It was 2025. I think the history is really just that there was a need. Like docs, there's this idea that docs are really important, but people can't necessarily articulate why they're important. Like it's this truth which people understand and believe, but don't have much explanation behind. And so the idea was really to have this survey and to have these interviews and to start to get a sense of like, okay, why are docs important? How can you prove the importance of docs? How can you measure docs? Because there's not a lot of measurement that happens in general. And so when I joined, we had just launched the survey and I kind of stepped in and I have this data background and there was a need for someone to do this. And so I wound up doing most of the interviews last year and like doing the survey analysis and then wound up taking it on to this year as again, a lot of stuff has changed from last year to this year. And it feels like it's more important than ever given the state of the
Hmm.
industry.
Yeah. So how has it changed from this year to from last year to this year?
Yeah, have you heard of AI?
Yeah.
It's say it went from last year where AI was like a thing that was there, that was lurking, that people were poking at and interested in. It wasn't necessarily the defining conversation. And this year it feels like it's the subtext for most things. It's here, and what do we do with it? And how do we change with it? And how do we adapt to it? How do we make the best use of it? So I'd say that's really a big part of things. I think with that, you get a lot of anxiety also from the community. How is this going to change my job or my role or my company, the industry in general? Like what's changing
Yeah.
here? And so I would say that's definitely the biggest change from last year.
What is the most surprising thing you learned from the state of the docs this year?
Yeah, I would say it's again not super surprising because like AI is everywhere, but I think seeing the numbers of last year, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it was maybe a third of the respondents last year were using AI, and like more than two-thirds this year were using it. Seeing that, like seeing how dramatic a shift in just a year there was pretty remarkable. And then kind of on the inverse, seeing how little governance there is over the AI usage
Hmm.
was surprising also. I think, again, it's changing so quickly, it's pretty hard to put things in place, but also it's non deterministic, things change. So having some level of like governance or approval that's consistent across the board, I would have expected to see a bit more of it. And I think maybe I'm curious next year if like that will be a step that everybody takes together.
Yeah, I've seen that some industries and groups are definitely pushing for more governance and oversight of AI in general. And I still hate
For
calling it
sure.
AI, but
Yeah, I
whatever.
think and it's
I
moving
think
so
I think we're stuck
quickly.
with it.
So, what do you say?
Oh, I think we're stuck with calling it AI now, even though it isn't. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's going to be my pet peeve for a long time.
It's a full syllable less than LLM. So
It
I
is,
think it's but
but it's wrong. It's
I
imprecise.
know. I know. But yeah, no, I think it's even just in the last couple of months since we launched State of Docs, I imagine there have been differences, and I'm curious to try and
Yeah.
track them as we go along.
Did you use AI tools to work on the state of the docs? And if so,
Yeah,
what were the upsides and downsides?
I did. I did, and I at the recommendation of Christopher Gales, who I interviewed for the report, who wrote The Product as Docs, he said, if you used AI, you should really talk about it. And so we have a note on the contributors page of the report because it felt like an important thing. I used it really all along the way, not in like press the button, here's the data, here's the report, but in a here are my questions, here are the questions from last year that we had. Here are the changes I want to make. Can you help me maybe bridge the gap so that we can analyze some of the data in like a longitudinal way from last year while not deviating too much, but making the fixes we want to fix. With the analysis, I had 30 transcripts. So it's like, okay, here, can you help me find some of the broader themes? Like, here are the themes that I heard. Are there additional themes that are coming through as well that I might have missed? With the analysis helping me like write the scripts to generate the graphics, all sorts of things like that. It was an amazing experience. Like I think the report would have taken me much longer without AI, but it required a ton of babysitting because AI would fabricate quotes from people or attribute them to the wrong people or attribute them in the transcript, attribute them to somebody else when I was the one who had said it in the interview. And so really going through and making sure that everything I did had a validation step of like, okay, if you're going to output a quote or a set of quotes, include the timestamps. I need to go through and confirm that the quotes actually align with the timestamps. Doing all that, it created a lot more work, I think, than if I hadn't done that, but it was a much better, more valid report because I did that. And overall, I think that, yeah, the whole thing happened in a much less laborious way than it would have without AI.
So, what's your take on AI tools and technical writing?
Yeah, I think it echoes the my process for the State of Docs report pretty well. I think technical writing, there are a lot of things to the job. And I've heard a lot of writers say that like writing is actually only a small bit of the technical writing piece. And
Hmm.
so I think it's text is so cheap now that I think it's necessarily going to lead to less writing by technical writers. But I think the same things that make technical writers really important haven't changed at all. understanding the product, being able to translate between the product or company and your users, customers, audience is really important. The vast majority of companies are building products with an engineering team and working on things at a feature level, but the vast majority of customers don't care about the features. They care about how does this actually solve my problems? How does this meet my needs? I think it's the technical writer's responsibility to make that translation and understand that. And so I think, well, and I think there's a certain amount of technical writing that has always been seen as like drudgery or like the maintenance work.
Yeah.
Last year, yeah, even before AI was like everywhere, I asked people, okay, how do you balance the maintenance of the old docs with the writing of the new docs? And I got like a collective sigh from basically everybody.
Hmm.
And I think AI really can help a lot with some of the maintenance and some of the yeah, the work that you don't necessarily want to do that's not so exciting, but is
Yeah.
vital to it. And then I think it's AI or technical writing becomes even more important in an age of AI when you have AI consuming docs. And this is
Hmm.
like, I think a lot of people talk about this. This is the garbage in, garbage out. Like, if you
Yep.
have agents who are reading your docs and you have agents who are writing your docs, you're going to wind up in pain very quickly with like just a terrible feedback loop. And so having a writer who steps in, who can ensure the accuracy, but not just the accuracy, ensure that the narrative makes sense for the product, ensure that the right product or the right feature is recommended at the right time, explaining what the different use cases are. I think that's like especially even more important now when you have this non-human audience.
Absolutely. What's your take on all of these layoffs, specifically the documentarian layoffs that have been sweeping the industry?
Yeah, I would say it's not super surprising. I mean, the layoffs, I
Hmm.
think, had started even before AI had hit the inflection point that it's at right now. I think there's generally has been a bigger desire to get rid of people. I think it's the case for engineering and technical writing. Still very curious to understand like the rates of these different professions in relation to each other, because I know there are a lot of layoffs happening everywhere. It wouldn't surprise me if the numbers are higher for technical writers, but I think the root cause is quite similar across the board. And I think it's companies have an excuse to get rid of people to try and make stock prices
Hmm.
go up. I think it's a pretty short-sighted thing. I think you need people to ensure the accuracy. Docs are the text-based version of your product, and that text is more important than ever. And so getting rid of a team whose job it is to make sure that this text-based version of your product is accurate and is compelling for your users, it feels very short-sighted.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 3 to 6 months before the companies that did those crazy layoffs, like laying off their entire documentation team, have some deep regrets. And I'm gonna be there with popcorn because, yeah,
Yeah.
that someone did not think that one through.
Yeah, I
So,
completely agree. Yeah, it feels like they're missing something there.
so gonna take a different turn here. So I know you're a sculptor, and you showed me some pictures at Write the Docs. What mediums do you sculpt in?
Yeah, so I started with crochet, making like abstract forms with crochet. I learned as a teenager, and then started to find it a little bit boring, and then started to think of like, okay, what can I make that's breaking the rules a little bit, or like, yeah, what can I achieve if I just make a shape without worrying too much about what that shape is? And then I was basically building these like masses with crochet, but the bigger the mass gets, the slower it gets because it's, I don't know,
Oh,
the
yeah.
volume relationship that happens there. And so then I started to incorporate some woodworking and 3D printed objects in order to like basically provide some bulk. And then in my graduate program, I have an MFA in sculpture. I wound up doing a fair amount of like digital fabrication, so CNC, woodworking, 3D printing, and also like small metals work. So basically
Hmm.
jewelry work, but not making jewelry, making like small vessels out of copper and silver and enamel and things like that. Yeah, but I've slowed down, but I'm just starting to pick it back up again recently.
That's wonderful. I actually have a BA in studio art, and I actually think that it taught me a lot of really important lessons that I've used professionally. Most importantly, how to get and give good critiques, because that was such an important part of my art classes. And being able to do that with your writing is just absolutely so valuable and vital. What have you learned from your art and from your MFA that applies to your professional work?
Yeah, I think feedback is absolutely, it's a great one. It's such an important part of the sculpture of the art making process. And I think it's a really important part of the just the professional process, but it's often lacking. And so understanding
Mm-hmm.
good ways to give the feedback, and also sometimes you have to work to solicit feedback also. And so being able to do that, I think, has been great. I think there's something about this is half baked, but like being able to you have the idea of you have the vision in the end, but you can't necessarily go from point A to point B. You kind of have to find you think you can get there, but the path is blocked, and so finding a way around, finding a way to achieve what you're trying to achieve, even when the most direct route is not available. I think that was a really important lesson for sculpture for me that applies across the board throughout. I think engineering, tech, technical writing, developer advocacy, all of it.
Yeah. So do you have a portfolio site, either writing or sculpture or art or both?
Yeah, not specifically. I have an Instagram, which is fairly out of date. I have a 6-year-old now, so I think when
Mhm.
she was born, my sculpture work slowed down quite a bit.
Understandable.
Yep, and I'm starting to
Daddy,
pick it back
Daddy, I
up.
want to play with the toy.
Yep, yeah. I mean, it is a lot of my works are really tactile, and so it's definitely a part of like her world, which is really nice.
Mhm.
But then finding the time to make stuff is not so easy with a young child. Yeah, and then for technical writing, I would say I don't have like one consolidated portfolio site, but I have examples online that I can point to. And so I share stuff on LinkedIn. I have the State of Docs website that I can point to. I have different blog posts. And so I think, yeah, I would be nice to have one consolidated place, but I think just knowing here are the links, here are the videos that I've made, here are the articles that I've written, and being able to pull those links up easily and quickly and share them with people has been really important.
Do you think it's important to have, if not a portfolio site, at least really ava easily available samples?
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly now where it's like there's so much around your content online that there are people who will have that public facing persona readily available. And if you spent all your time working like kind of more quietly in the dark, I think you're going to struggle to not have those examples. And so being able to say, hey, look at this thing I worked on, look at the maybe the success that the reach that it had, look at the people who read it, here's what I learned from it, here's where it didn't do well. I think being able to just have those readily available is very important.
Yeah, I agree. I've also been seeing and hearing about some companies requiring a URL to your portfolio as part of the application process. Or more obnoxiously, sometimes give us a TikTok style video about why you want to work with us and why you're perfect for the job.
Yeah, I've seen all different versions of that from like, what is the link? Where can I get all your stuff? To, okay, send us a few examples of pieces you've written. And yeah, because I don't have a central site when I've applied for stuff in the past, like it's nice to be able to just, okay, here's a blog I wrote with my name on it. Here's a docs page I wrote with my name on it. Here's a video I made. But I think it's becoming increasingly like, especially, I think there's a lot more AI applying for jobs now. And
Ugh,
so,
yeah,
yeah, so I think people really want some sort of like vetting process, and being able to share that is another form of, yeah, of vetting there.
yeah, absolutely agree. You probably have more insight into the industry than almost anyone else right now, given all the people you've talked to. Where do we go next?
Yeah, I don't have like this is the narrative, but I'm seeing more and more around okay, how is the role changing? What is the role becoming? The role of the technical writer is important, but it's becoming less about the writing. Okay, what's it becoming about? and I've seen other titles pop up: context engineer, content
Yeah.
engineer, docs auditor. And so when I chatted with Daiquiri for State of Docs, I really wanted to like hash out, okay, what are we seeing here? And it goes back now a couple of months. So I'm sure there's new developments even since then. But it felt like the three places where technical writers were particularly important, there's this place of just accuracy, which again, I don't know if it's the most exciting one because like no one wants to be just purely about accuracy, but I think that's this auditor role that's
Hmm.
there. I think there's this idea of like the internal narrative. So understanding you have your product has a bunch of different pieces and parts. When those pieces and parts are written, when you have a pull request for a given feature, they're all in isolation. Like they're not talking to each other, but being the person who understands how the product all connects together. Like, yeah, it's that team is building that product over there, that team is building product B over there, but like here's when you would go from A to B. Here's how you'd set that up. So it's kind of like the internal narrative about the product. And then I think there's also the external narrative about the product. So it's like, okay, you have a person who's coming in and they know they need a database, and you want the LLM to recommend your database product and to be able to make the connection that a person asking for a database is asking for that product. Or more likely, you have a person coming in who knows what they want to build, but maybe they don't even know what a database is. And you need the LLM to be able to connect, like, okay, this person asking for a classic building the to-do list app is going to need a database. They're going to want your product in doing that. And so being able to write the content and shape the narrative to connect those across the board also feels like a very important thing. There are also all the other facets. Like there's the idea of docs writer as like QA engineer. Like you're the person who's kind of coming in and testing the product with a user oriented perspective and really understanding how to use it. I think there are like all the little bits like that also. And so I think being able to focus on those functions, which are not about putting pen to paper specifically, but it's about, okay, what's the story here? How do we tell the story so that it fits with humans and the way humans are working now, and fits with LLMs and the way humans are using LLMs to work now? Yeah, roughly. It's not the most ordered, but like I'm seeing those different pieces of this.
I wonder if we should lean into the documentarian title because, yeah, I've been seeing the same thing with content engineers or AI agent operations specialist and yeah, it seems like, I mean, we've always kind of done more than just writing, and it seems like, but a lot of people outside of the industry didn't really understand that. And so it seems like A, that's coming back to bite us a little bit, but B, we really need to explain that more and better and really lean into that more because we've always been the ones who connect the different silos, support to engineering, to sales, to marketing, to, make sure that everyone's kind of on the same page, literally and or metaphorically.
Yeah,
And it seems like that kind of really ties well into orchestrating agents and workflows. We just need to figure out how to explain that and how to do that properly with a rapidly changing technological environment.
for sure. Yeah, there's also like I had a previous role, I was there for a while, and I had like the unofficial title of historian and like understanding, okay, all these different decisions, here's when they were made, here's how they were made, here's how do you explain this to like even a new engineer coming in that maybe it seems like building it this way would be a good idea, but it's not. We tried it before. Maybe don't do it that way. So yeah, it's this central locus of information is the role, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the best way to brand that is.
Yeah, like I said, we're definitely doing it. One of the writers that I work with has an engineer type or business type. I'm not sure what her title is, but she needs to update a product and have the information go into a bunch of tables. But she was having trouble formatting the tables. So what he did is he literally wrote a GitHub action so that she could just drop the information in and it would sort it and format it for her just automatically. And things like that, those, fixing those kind of problems and making those workflows, I think, is something where we're really going to shine.
Totally. Yeah, I've seen also like there are these much smaller technical writing teams where they're not necessarily writing everything themselves, but they're serving as this the central repository where like engineers will make contributions or a support team will make contributions, and they're making sure that all of these different one-offs connect and make sense
Yeah.
together. So it's editor and like I don't know, bridge
Documentation
maker.
coordinator.
Yeah, something about that there. And there's engineering to that, and there's structure to that, and there's yeah, copy editing there. So a few different things.
Any advice for people dealing with this lousy job market? Because there are so many people unemployed, and I'm hearing people talking about it, how it's the worst job market in 30 years.
Yeah, I would say, well, if you're someone who's currently employed but doesn't have a lot of faith in how your company is doing right now, do what you can to try and sell the value of documentation to higher management. It's way easier said than done. Like I know that's a really complicated thing, but connect with your support team, your sales team, start to build the narratives of like, okay, here's how the documentation has been useful. Report on things like page views. Page views, they're controversial because they're not necessarily so useful as is, but I've heard of a few different people who sell page views as just like look at the eyes that a documentation is getting. So really try and do that. So hopefully you can keep your job and your coworkers and other technical writers can keep their jobs too. I would say if you're looking for a job, work with AI, like really work with it and understand it. There's a certain amount of fluency to the process that you have to build. You'll even see like comparing Claude to Gemini to ChatGPT. Each one has its own way of working with it, and you're going to work with it. It's going to do something just really terrible, and you're going to be disappointed by that. But you can work your way, you could find your way around that. And so understanding what those steps are to get the results that you want, I think it's really, really important, especially now. Basically, everywhere is using AI in some form or another. And so understanding how it fits into the job is vital. And so whether it's the docs engineering step, it's building that GitHub action to format
Mm-hmm.
tables properly, whether it's automating a first draft writing that you kind of step in and you review, building a portfolio site, just like put it through its paces, understand how it works. I would say that's the second thing. And then focus on networks also. It's really important to build a network. I always felt really kind of gross networking. It wasn't something that I enjoyed that much. But then working on State of Docs, like I've just been talking to so many people, and that person talks to that person, and people start to connect. And it's been really amazing to build that and to see that and to see how people come through for each other and share with each other. And so, yeah, wherever you can, just like connect with people in person, online, however it works best.
Absolutely. And I think LinkedIn is such a great tool for that. And the Write the Docs community are both just so fantastic. I mean, I would also say make sure that you can speak to not just how you use AI, but how you would adjust or write documentation to make it accessible to AI, because you need to be able to speak about both of those things right now.
Totally. And understand where AI is not necessarily succeeding and what to do to get around that and understand where maybe a thing that was hard before is made easier by it. So it's and yeah, know how to write with AI and know how to write for AI also.
Yeah, absolutely. So, any closing thoughts, Tal?
Not specifically, I would say, yeah, it's a pretty rough time out there. It's also been really nice to see the curiosity and the capability and like what people are achieving in that. So I don't know, stay curious and stay interested and good luck there.
Yeah. If nothing else, follow Daggery Carey, Tom Johnson, and Ms. Rodriguez. Rihanna?
Hmm.
Mm,
Rhiannon. Yeah, Rhiannon
Rhiannon
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez's work, because if you follow them, you'll definitely be able to speak like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, also Fabrizio,
Oh,
Manny. There's a lot of people out there who are just like doing amazing work, and it's it's been really encouraging to see that.
I have been loving watching people do these experiments and this research and share it. It has
Yeah.
just been delightful to watch. And I just love that people in our industry are doing this, sharing, seeking this knowledge and sharing it. That it's, there's just something so joyful and wonderful about that.
Yeah, and that feels I haven't been part of the industry for that long. Like I know people have been part of it for 30 years and it's been 5 to 7 for me, but seeing that, like that feels like a fairly new development. And it's kind of born of necessity, but it's amazing that it's possible that people can do that people are interested in that. Like I love that. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Well, Tal, thank you so much for chatting with me today on Technical Writing Uncensored. And hey, if you're watching this and you enjoyed the conversation, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. It really helps me out with the algorithm. And I will see you next time on Technical Writing Uncensored. Bye now.
Thanks.